sounds exist in space. And with stereophonic recording, the feeling of space and perspective is brought to you.
Hello and welcome to another album review on this channel. My name is Josh, and for today I am going to be reviewing the album Whatever People Say I Am, That's What I'm Not by the band Arctic Monkeys. Arctic Monkeys is an indie rock band from Sheffield, England that was formed in 2002. They are considered one of the first bands to come to public attention via social media, with their MySpace page being a significant factor in their rising popularity prior to the release of their debut album. In June of 2005, they signed a record deal with Domino Recording Company, and in January of 2006, they released their debut studio album, Whatever People Say I Am, That's What I'm Not. Arctic Monkeys' music was inspired by artists like Oasis, The Clash, The Smiths, The Kinks, The Strokes, and the Queens of the Stone Age. Their music features elements of indie rock, garage rock, post-punk revival, psychedelic rock, alternative rock, and post-Britpop. They have released 6 studio albums so far, their last studio album, Tranquility Base Hotel and Casino, being released in 2018. But the album I'm reviewing today is their debut studio album, titled Whatever People Say I Am, That's What I'm Not. This album was released in the UK on January 23rd, 2006. It was released under the record label of Domino, and the producer for this album was Jim Abbas. Jim Abbas is a British producer who has produced albums for artists such as Adele, Editors, Kasabian, Birdie, Placebo, and Lady Tron. The members of the band on this album include Alex Turner, who is the lead vocalist. He also plays lead and rhythm guitar on this album, and he provides percussion on this album. You have Jamie Cook, who is the rhythm and lead guitarist on this album. He also provides backing vocals. You have Andy Nicholson. He is the bass guitarist, and he also provides backing vocals. And then finally you have Matt Helders, who is the drummer. He does percussion, and he also provides backing vocals. This album had 3 singles. The first single was I Bet You Look Good on the Dance Floor. Second single was When the Sun Goes Down. And the third single was Fake Tales of San Francisco. The genres for this album include indie rock, garage rock revival, post-punk revival, punk rock, alternative rock, and finally post-Britpop. This album was very positively reviewed when it came out. AllMusic gave it 5 out of 5. NME gave it 10 out of 10. It also won NME's Album of the Year in 2006, and they listed it as number 19 on their list of 500 greatest albums of all time. Pitchfork gave it a 7.4 out of 10, and finally Rolling Stone gave it a 4 out of 5, and it's ranked as number 371 on Rolling Stone's list of the 500 greatest albums of all time. This album won Best British Album of the Year at the 2007 Brit Awards and was nominated for Best Alternative Music Album at the 2007 Grammy Awards. This album peaked at number 1 on the UK charts and number 24 on the US charts. This is the fastest selling debut album in UK charts history, selling over 360,000 copies in the first week. And so far, this album has sold over 2.8 million copies worldwide. This album was produced and recorded at the Chapel Studio in Lincolnshire, England, also at Two Fly Studio in Sheffield, England, and Telstar Studios in Munich, Germany. The album was mixed at Olympia Studios in London, England. And now I'm going to talk about each song in this album. I'm going to give you my opinions on all of these songs. After that, I'm going to let you know my top 3 songs from this album. I'm going to give my overall thoughts on this album, and then I'm going to give you my final rating for this album. So the first song on this album is called The View from the Afternoon. This song was written by Alex Turner, and I absolutely love this song. This is a high energy, fast tempo, progressive indie rock song, and I was honestly just blown away by how well arranged this song was. It felt like multiple amazing song ideas placed all together into one song, and it flowed together really seamlessly. You know, it didn't feel like multiple songs kind of mushed together. It just felt like one complete song with just multiple different ideas, and the progression throughout the song I really enjoyed. I'm also a big fan of songs that have the stop-start nature to it, and I feel like it creates great dynamics in songs. This is something the Pixies did. They're kind of known for in their music. It's something I've always loved, and I like how they use it in this song. I feel like they did it perfectly, where the song stops and then you kind of maybe think it's done and it comes back in. I thought that was really effective. I thought the lyrics were really interesting and creative. Very descriptive language that you can interpret many different ways. And I thought Alex's singing in this song was great, with lots of energy. So overall, I thought this was a really fun song and a perfect introduction to this band. The second song on this album is called I Bet You Look Good on the Dance Floor. This song was written by Alex Turner, and this is the first single to appear on this album. And this song was ranked as number 7 on NME's 500 Greatest Songs of All Time. And this is one of my favorite songs on this album. This is a super high energy, noisy, indie/alternative rock song that gives me real like punk rock vibes to it. This was the first song I had ever heard from this band back in the mid 2000s, probably like 2007, 2008. And I immediately fell in love with this song, and this song made me into a fan of this band. I just love everything about this song. Just super energetic. The instrumentation's so catchy. The lyrics are super fun. Great vocal performance by Alex Turner, and just has everything that you want out of an indie rock song. I understand why this is one of their most popular songs on this album, because it just has so much energy, and it really just showcases what this band is about. And I feel like this was the single that really pushed them into the mainstream at that time. So overall, I really enjoyed this song a lot. I just love that punk rock energy of this song, kind of showing a different side of the band that you heard from the first song. And it's just a really catchy riff that they did on this, that Alex Turner is playing. So overall, I really enjoyed this song a lot. The third song on this album is called Fake Tales of San Francisco. This is written by Alex Turner, and this is the second single to appear on this album. And I really like this song. This is a mid-tempo, more chill indie rock song, especially compared to the last song. It has this really simple, catchy indie rock sound to it that I really liked. I thought the vocals were okay. I thought the lyrics were really creative and well written on this song. Also, I like that they played this song here as like a cool down from the last 2 songs, which are way more energetic. So it really helps the flow of this album. It creates a better listening experience where you're not hearing all the same sounds over and over again. So overall, I thought this was a really great song. I thought the lyrics were really creative and fun. And overall, this is just a great start to this album. The fourth song on this album is called Dancing Shoes. This was written by Alex Turner, And I also really like this song. This is a fun, noisy, catchy indie rock song. I thought this song had a really catchy groove to it. The groove and riff really makes you want to move and dance, which makes sense because this song's called Dancing Shoes. I really like the lyrics in this song. This song is about going to a club and seeing a girl you like, but you're too scared to talk to her. And the song kind of continues with the overall concept of this album, which so far is just about like the nightclub scene in Sheffield, where they're from. They're talking about going out and partying in a lot of these songs. So this song kind of continues with that same concept. But overall, this is a really fun song, super up-tempo, and just a song you can dance to and groove to really easily. So I really enjoyed this song a lot. The fifth song on this album is called You Probably Couldn't See for the Lights, But You Were Staring Straight at Me. This song was written by Alex Turner, and I like this song. This song starts off fast with a lot of energy and a really catchy main guitar riff. This is the shortest song on this album at a little over 2 minutes long, and I think it really fits the garage punk sound that they're going for with this song. It's just like a burst of energy, similar to the song I Bet You Look on the Dance Floor, where it just like starts off super energetic. This song had a similar start where it's, a lot of energy from the start. Alex is singing in his usual high energy singing style that I feel like works really good for fast tempo songs like this one. And I really want to shout out Matt Helder, who's the drummer. He's providing backing vocals on this song, which I really enjoyed and I thought added a lot to this song. I also really like the lyrics in this song. I thought they were really funny and relatable. It's about Alex attending a concert and making eye contact with the lead singer who he has a crush on, thinking that she liked him too, but in reality she was just blinded by the stage lights and couldn't see anything out in the crowd. So I just thought that was a funny concept. And it actually reminded me a lot of the song The Rock Show by Blink-182 from their fourth studio album Take Off Your Pants and Jacket, which was released in 2001. It just reminded me of that because that song also has, the subject matter of falling in love with someone at a concert or a rock show in that case. And just overall, I really enjoyed the lyrics of the song. I thought they were really well written. And Alex Turner has said in interviews that the song was actually written about Eva Peterson, who was the lead singer of this band called The Little Flames. And this band, The Little Flames, actually opened for Arctic Monkeys on the tour of this album. So I thought that was just kind of an interesting fact that I found. But overall, I really enjoyed this song. It has great energy to it. It's really fun, great instrumentation, and just really clever lyrics. Also, the vocal performances I thought were really well done by both Alex Turner and Matt Helders. The sixth song on this album is called Still Take You Home. This is written by Alex Turner and Jamie Cook. And I really like this song a lot. This is actually the only song on this album not solely written by Alex Turner. This is also written with Jamie Cook, who is the other guitarist in this band. So this is the only song where someone else receives a co-writing credit. And this song starts off very similar to the last song with that burst of energy, very fast tempo, and a really catchy riff. And as the song progresses, they start to explore more mid-tempo, like R&B sounds that I feel like add a really nice dynamic and contrast to the main riff and just to this song. It really makes the song flow really well. I really enjoyed the guitar work on this song. I feel like that really stood out by both Alex and Jamie. Lyrically, this song is about Alex meeting a woman at a nightclub who only has good looks and nothing else, but he still wants to sleep with her because he's drunk and horny. So again, the song doesn't have much substance to it, at least lyrically, but it's more just about, the nightclub scene in Sheffield and just them keeping with that concept of this album, which I'll talk about later on when I get to my overall thoughts about the concept of this album. But I just thought the lyrics were really fun, even though it's kind of this nightclub concept is a little lacking some substance and is a little repetitive at this point. I still enjoyed the lyrics. I thought they were just fun to listen to, especially with this really fun, catchy instrumentation. And overall, I thought this was a great song and a hidden gem on this album. This is a song I had never heard of before. It wasn't a hit, wasn't a single, and I've heard a lot of songs on this album just being a fan of this band, but I'd never listened to this album the full way through. So this is a song that I totally missed, but I really enjoyed it. This is a type of song that could have been a single. It just has that super energetic, fun vibe to it that it was so common in that 2000s indie rock scene. And I just feel like the Arctic Monkeys on their debut album, they're just killing it and making songs like this. And this is one of those songs that's just really well written overall and just a really great song to listen to. The 7th song on this album is called Riot Van, and this song was written by Alex Turner. And this is another one of my favorite Arctic Monkeys songs. This is another song that I had heard way back in the day, probably around like 2006, 2007, and I just fell in love with this song. This is a very chill, slow tempo ballad type song that has this melancholy vibe to it. I think it's a really great come down track, with most of the songs of this album being so energetic and fast tempo. It's a really nice change of pace for this album. I thought the instrumentation is very simple for this song, but I liked it overall. Not all instrumentation needs to be super complex with all these counter melodies and stuff. Sometimes just having a simple kind of acoustic instrumentation with just Alex's singing over it, kind of a melancholy chill vibe, that can work. This song reminds me of a song by the Smiths, just because it's so emotion driven and just that very chill singing style in Alex's voice. I do feel like he doesn't sell the emotion as well as obviously Morrissey does in the Smiths. He has a much drier, more like depressed singing style, which I think works. It gives it more of like an emo vibe, but I really do like the just the structure of this song, the arrangement and the production of what the choices they made when making this song. I really like the lyrics in the song. It's about having fun with your friends and not caring what happens in your life. The song also deals with police relations in the UK and just, the characters in the song are kind of hiding from the cops and making fun of the cops. And it really gives me, the vibes of like a Clash song, which, in that punk scene at that time, a lot of their songs, especially on the album London's Calling, were dealing with, some of the corruption in the UK police scene and just painted a picture of how, people of that time viewed authority figures like the police. And I feel like this song captures that same energy. It's a little bit more melancholy than probably a Clash song, but it just gave me those same vibes. But overall, I really enjoyed this song a lot. This is a song, like I mentioned before, I listened to a long time ago. It's one of the earlier songs I listened to from this band. It was a song I learned on guitar when I was starting off playing guitar because it's a pretty simple song, but it's really fun to play. And I was just a huge fan of this band. And with this review, I've had a chance to give this song a more dedicated listen, and I was just really impressed by how mature this song sounds and just how different this song sounds from any other song on this album. It just has this melancholy vibe to it, and without all these other songs being about partying and the nightclub scene and meeting all these girls, I feel like a song like this is needed on this album to help provide a change of pace and just, change up the normal Arctic Monkeys sound of just super high energy, super, noisy music. I think having a more chilled down, more like ballad song, dealing with a different subject, but in kind of that same like teenage rebellion space, I think it just works really well for the flow and listenability of this album. The 8th song on this album is called Red Light Indicates Doors Are Secured. This song was written by Alex Turner, and I absolutely love this song. It's just so much fun. Has one of the catchiest riffs on this album. Very funky, energetic, fun indie rock song. I really like how they use the layering of guitars in the instrumentation on this song. It reminds me a lot of a Modest Mouse song where you have multiple counter melodies of guitars kind of layered on top of each other to create this really cool effect. With all these arpeggios and stuff, it really helps create this really cool fun indie rock song. This is one of my favorite vocal performances on this album, and it's by all the band members. This is one of those songs that has that classic call and response vocal style that was very famous in the 70s and 80s punk scene, and you hear that throughout this song. It has this chant feel to it that I really enjoyed, and I enjoyed all the vocals on this song in particular by all the band members. The lyrics for this song are pretty basic, but I thought they were written really creatively. This song is about leaving the club in a taxi trying to get home, so it's a very simple surface level subject matter, but I like the description that they use to describe this trip because it really puts you as a listener into that scene. You can very much visualize it just because of the language that they're using, the way they're describing it. Even the song's title, red light indicates doors are secured. That's a little poster thing that's on cabs in London and Sheffield. They have that sign there, so it's you really feel like you're in this British culture when you're listening to this song. You're just learning all these new terms and just what it's like being there, so it's a very simple song in terms of subject matter, but still very interesting because it's a really well written song by Alex Turner. And overall, this is one of my favorite songs in this album, and it's a total hidden gem for me. I had never heard this song before. I don't know how I missed it, but this is a song that the more I listened to it, the more I enjoyed it, the more I heard new things. There's just so much going on. Amazing instrumentation, great songwriting, and just one of the best Arctic Monkeys songs. It's a really great song overall. The ninth song on this album is called Mardy Bum. This was written by Alex Turner, and I thought this song was great. This is a very catchy, fun indie rock song with a great melody to it. This is another Arctic Monkeys song that I'd heard before. I used to really enjoy this song in high school, and this is one of the songs that really made me a fan of this band. The instrumentation and song arrangement for this song is really well done. And this song went on to be one of Arctic Monkeys' most popular songs from this album. This song has become a classic Arctic Monkeys song that they play at basically every concert. Alex's singing sounds great on this song. Also, the lyrics on this song I thought were really well written, very clever, very catchy, and they have kind of a depressing, melancholy vibe to them. So basically the song's about Alex's girlfriend arguing with him and being in a bad mood, which he calls a Mardy Bum, which is, I guess, Sheffield or English slang. And throughout the song, he reminisces about better times in the relationship, and just the details and the descriptive language he uses, I just thought was really clever. So overall, I love this song. This is a classic Arctic Monkeys song, a song that I've had in playlists for years, and I've always just really enjoyed. And it just has that indie rock radio hit vibe to it, even though this song actually wasn't even the single when this album came out. This song has become one of their most popular songs, and in my opinion, for good reason. The 10th song on this album is called Perhaps Vampires is a Bit Strong But. This song was written by Alex Turner, and I did not like this song. This is the first song on this album that I wasn't a big fan of. The instrumentation on this song is a lot darker and more chaotic than most of the songs on this album. It's definitely kind of a tonal shift when you get to this song, especially coming off of Mardy Bum, which was much more of a lighter song. The instrumentation during the verse I thought was okay, but I'm really not a fan of this chorus. The chorus to me is very basic and just doesn't have that catchiness to it that you want out of a chorus, especially a chorus for this band, who I feel like they really set a high standard for writing really catchy choruses. Just the melody and the rhythm that they use for this chorus and the stop and start thing just doesn't work for me. I do like the second half of this song a lot more than the first half. The second half, it almost feels like a completely different song. It becomes way more energetic and chaotic with this really cool like instrumental breakdown with this drum solo that I thought was amazing. But I just feel like having this much of like a tone style shift in the middle of a song, it just makes the song feel very disjointed and all over the place. It doesn't feel earned. It just feels kind of, poorly produced and just kind of meshed together. So I wasn't a big fan of just the arrangement, the song arrangement for this and some of the production choices. I thought Alex's singing was fine, and I thought the lyrics were fine. This is one of those songs where there's nothing that really like stands out. The biggest standout thing was that drum solo, which I thought was really cool, but it just doesn't do enough for me to really save this song. So overall, I don't think this song is terrible by any means. And I understand why some people may like it. For some people, this may even be their favorite song. And I think part of that is because it's so different. So I do kind of give them credit for experimenting and trying something different, but it's just not for me. This is a song that I was really disappointed in because, this album's, all these songs have just been bangers. Every song I've enjoyed, and this song really stood out to me as the weakest song on this album by far. It just didn't have that catchy melody, that catchy, those catchy riffs, the groove that I'm looking for in Arctic Monkeys song. And I feel like a big factor too is they just set such a high standard with this album, with having so many great songs, that a song like this that doesn't really hit that same quality, it just really stands out. And it was a big disappointment for me for sure. The 11th song on this album is called When the Sun Goes Down. This song was written by Alex Turner, and this is the third and last single to appear on this album. And this is my favorite Arctic Monkeys song of all time. This is, again, one of the earlier songs I heard from this band. This is one of the first songs I learned on guitar from this band, all the way through. And it's just such a great, well-written song. This is one of those songs that has everything I want out of an indie rock song. It starts off with Alex singing and playing guitar by himself in this very like 2000s acoustic ballad style. The instrumentation is very similar to the song Riot Van from earlier in the album. That very like melancholy, kind of sad feeling to it. And this song to me is really a showcase for how talented of a singer Alex Turner really is. Especially at this young in his career. He has so much range on this song and so much emotion in his voice, which, I feel like that's a hard thing to do, especially when the song starts off with about a minute long, acoustic ballad section and it's dealing with some, more serious subject matter. When you have a song like this, you really have to sell that emotion, and he does a great job of selling, that kind of melancholy, kind of sad emotion really well. You can already tell throughout this album he can do the high energy punk stuff, but have him doing this stuff and just showing off that range, I thought was really impressive. And then about a minute into the song entirely shifts into this super energetic, fast tempo, noisy indie rock song that I just thought sounded amazing. And unlike the last song, which also had kind of a song shift, a tempo shift, this one just felt way more organic, and it fit so much better in the song. Just the production values and it just fits so much better with this song, this change. It reminded me a lot of the song I Bet You Look Good on the Dance Floor from earlier in the album, with just that burst of energy. The drumming during this section I thought was amazing. And then the song, after he goes through the whole song in this super energetic kind of punk rock style, the song ends with that same soft ballad style from the beginning. They go back to it. And I feel like that's a perfect end for a song like this. Just Alex singing in the song is amazing, just singing with so much energy and passion, and it just really makes you more invested in a song when the singer, you can tell, has passion and is invested in what they're singing. And I think a lot of that has to do with him being a songwriter. Singer-songwriters, I feel like, have that advantage of, because they're actually writing out their own lyrics, they're singing with the passion that is the songwriter's intent. And because they're the songwriter, it just comes off so naturally. I love the lyrics in this song. This is some of my favorite lyrics on the album. Great wordplay, very descriptive. The song is about a prostitute who used to work the street corners next to the recording studio that this album was recorded at in Sheffield. And throughout the song, they deal with just how shady that world is, and how, the women don't really have the power in that relationship with the pimp. And they delve into a lot of different subject matter that is kind of serious, but I feel like the creative wordplay that they use comes off sometimes as being funny, sometimes more serious, but it's just so creatively written that you're just engaged throughout. I also thought it was cool that they referenced the song Roxanne by The Police, which was from their debut studio album Outlandos de Amor. And I just thought it was cool because this is another famous song about prostitution that was also done by an English rock band. And obviously The Police is a very influential band. It probably was an influence for this band. So I thought it was just kind of cool that they kind of gave them a shout out. But overall, this is one of the best indie rock songs ever, in my opinion. This is definitely my favorite Arctic Monkeys song. This is one of my favorite indie rock songs, period. I think the reason I like this song so much is because the lyrics and the subject matter, I think, is very interesting, and it deals with something that is kind of a heavy subject, but the way they use the wordplay, it just comes off as like just very like mature writing, I guess. It's very interesting writing. The instrumentation is just always interesting to me. I love the kind of shift from the slower instrumentation to the more fast, high energy, kind of punk rock theme instrumentation that they use throughout most of the song. And this song also has one of my favorite vocal performances from Alex Turner on this record. So overall, this is one of my favorite indie rock songs of all time, my favorite Arctic Monkeys song of all time, and definitely a song that I highly recommend. If you're gonna listen to one song from this album, have it be this song, because this song is very well written song that I really enjoyed. The 12th song on this album is called From the Ritz to the Rubble. This song was written by Alex Turner. And this is another one of my favorite songs on this album. Song's super catchy, it's really well written, and I was just really impressed by this song overall. The instrumentation's always progressing and staying interesting, which is something I love in indie songs, while still keeping this fast tempo and energy throughout. They still keep that Arctic Monkeys sound, that signature sound, but they progress and they keep, adding different stuff to the sounds, to the instrumentation. I thought Alex's singing in this song was amazing. He has this like rap-like flow to his lyrics that sounds perfectly with this type of instrumentation. He's mentioned in interviews that he's a huge hip-hop fan, so I'm just guessing that he probably was influenced by hip-hop artists, and he kind of brought that vocal style, that vocal flow into his music, and specifically on this song you can really tell. But on all these songs, you can tell like he is really good at fitting, long bars and making it flow right and kind of fitting it in. In this song in particular, he's just singing so fast that it gives almost like a hip hop performance. And I was just really impressed with the singing on this song. The song, in terms of lyrics, is about nightclub experience in Sheffield, and Alex getting turned away from the club by a bouncer. So again, they're going back to that nightclub kind of concept that they started this album off with, and they kind of went away from that from the last couple of songs, but they're kind of coming back to that original concept about the nightclub scene in Sheffield. And I thought the lyrics were very descriptive and they flowed perfectly in this song. So overall, this song is just really fun. If I had one word to describe this song, I would say fun. It has this great 2000s indie rock energy to it that just keeps going, and it mixes really well with the vocals and the lyrics. And that just results in an amazing indie rock song that I really enjoyed. The 13th and last song on this album is called A Certain Romance. This song was written by Alex Turner, and I like this song. This song is the longest song on this album at a little bit over 5 minutes long, so it gives it this epic feel to the song, and I feel like these songs work the best as album enders. So for this song being an album ender, I think it just works great. The main guitar riff in this song is super catchy, has all these other counter melodies coming in from the other guitar. It's just a really well arranged song. It has that kind of epic feel to it where they kind of go into different musical choices and ideas. Alex also has a much more chill, kind of subtle talk/sing vocal performance that I think works really well for this subject matter. And this is more of like a cool down, album ender epic song. I think of songs like Only in Dreams by Weezer, which is off the Blue album, which is kind of like my go-to when I think of like perfect album enders, where it's just kind of like this, super spacious kind of epic song to end the album. This song had that same vibe to me. I really like the lyrics in this song. The song starts off with Alex complaining about the people around him, both his family and friends, and how they're obsessed with mainstream culture and just being cool and being, hip and everything, but they lack originality and passion, which he calls a certain romance. They lack that same passion that he has for music. And then the last verse of the song, he admits that even though these people may be, annoying to him at times, not all of them are bad. He's learning to accept them, and he's having kind of an introspective view throughout this song. And fans have interpreted this song as being kind of an allegory to Alex's view on the mainstream music industry, because throughout this song, there's definitely lyrics where he kind of talks about the mainstream music industry as more of like his enemy, and how he just doesn't want to conform to that style. He wants to be himself. So a lot of fans have kind of interpreted this song as him kind of accepting the popularity that he had at this time, because even though this is his debut album for the band, they had so much hype going into this album because they had so much popularity building up on a MySpace page, and just their online presence was so huge. They had so much hype that they were basically superstars before this album even came out. While they were making this album, they're that popular, and there's just so much hype for this album. So this song is very introspective in that way, and I think that's a perfect subject matter to end this album with, to be kind of like, not necessarily like breaking the fourth wall, but just being kind of like introspective on this album that you're making while you're writing this song. I just thought that was a really clever idea, and it's really well written lyrics by Alex Turner. And overall, I thought this was a great song, the perfect ender to an album like this. I feel like it felt different than most of the songs in this album. It kind of stands out in that way. I really like the epic instrumentation, how this has more of like a chill vibe to it, and I thought this was a perfect song to choose to end this album. And now I'm going to go over my top 3 songs on this album, and this is in no particular order. The first song for me is Red Light Indicates Doors Are Secured. This was the 8th track on this album, and this song had one of the funnest, catchiest riffs on this album, and just a really great vocal performance by the entire band. I think that's another reason I really enjoy this song. Everyone, the band, the backing vocals really support this song well. Really well arranged song overall, and just a great song to groove to. So this song is definitely a hidden gem on this album. A song that I had not listened to before, but I'm really happy that I had the chance to listen to this song, and it's one of my top 3 songs on this album. The second song for me is When the Sun Goes Down, which is the 11th track on this album. And like I mentioned when I was reviewing the song, this is my favorite Arctic Monkeys song of all time, and one of my favorite indie songs of all time. I just love how the song progresses, the amazing vocal performance by Alex Turner, just so much passion in its singing, and probably some of my favorite lyrics on this album. And the third song for me is From the Ritz to the Rubble, which is the 12th track on this album. This song has my favorite vocal performance on this album by Alex Turner. I just thought his singing on this album with that kind of rap flow style that he did, I was just really impressed by that. I thought this song had great energy. It's really fun instrumentation and really funny lyrics, about, him being kicked out by a bouncer and him kind of cursing out the bouncer. I just thought the lyrics were really fun and just fit the instrumentation really well. And this song just has everything that I want out of an indie rock song. So, I really enjoyed that song a lot. So again, my top 3 songs on this album in no particular order are Red Light Indicates Doors Are Secured, When the Sun Goes Down, and finally, From the Ritz to the Rubble. Now I'm going to talk about some of my overall thoughts on this album. The first thought that I wanted to talk about was I was just really impressed by the songwriting ability of Alex Turner on this album. I thought his lyrics come off as very authentic and real. Throughout the album, he references different places and cultural aspects from his hometown of Sheffield, England, and just really helps to paint a picture of what it's like to live there. I feel like when artists do this in their songwriting, it's just so effective to really put you there in the song and just visualize this album. It reminds me a lot of the album Illmatic by Nas, which was his debut studio album, where he paints a picture for the listeners of what's it like to live in Queensbridge and growing up in the projects there, and you really visualize what Nas is rapping about in that album. And I feel like the songwriting on this album did the same thing for me, which is high praise because Illmatic is one of my favorite hip-hop albums of all time because it's the concept of just putting you in that culture, in that environment. And I feel like this album does the same thing. You're visualizing that nightclub environment. You're visualizing, Alex and the band when they're in the cab, and you visualize all these different moments from this album when you're listening to it, just because of how just well written and descriptive the language that Alex uses in his lyrics. And I just thought he was an amazing songwriter for this album. I just was really impressed, especially for this being, the debut album for this band. I also love the instrumentation on this album. This band sounds like they've been playing together for like 20 years. Every instrument just has its place on the frequency spectrum. No, weird clashes of instruments where it sounds like they're playing over each other. No instruments that feel like they're showing off. Like everyone just feels very tight as a band. This is a really well produced album by Jim Abbas. He did a great job of getting the best performances out of these band members. You can really feel the chemistry with this band. Like I mentioned, this feels like a band that's been playing together for multiple years. All the songs had something catchy about them that I felt were memorable or at least experimental. And so, just overall, the instrumentation on this album I thought was really amazing and set a really high standard for indie music going forward. This album was very influential for the indie rock scene because of the instrumentation. I think that really influenced a lot of the indie music that we hear today. I love how this album flows, just the listenability of this album. All the songs on this track list, I feel like fit together nicely. It's a really well produced and put together track list. You don't get bored listening to this album. It goes by really fast, and it's a great mix of energetic and chill songs. So there's a lot of variety on this album. This isn't just like a pure, super energetic punk rock album, but it's also not like a super chilled out indie rock album. It has that mix, and they do a great job of putting maybe a couple of energetic songs followed by a chill down song and then going back, and it just creates a very listenable album that I really enjoyed. I also like that this was a concept album. I feel that, with concept albums, sometimes they can be hit or miss. I love concept albums personally, but there's some concept albums where I feel like either they go too deep into the concept and they kind of pigeonhole themselves into a sound or type of genre or something that just doesn't allow for a lot of creativity, or their concept is way too loose and it just doesn't have that connective tissue. I feel like this is like the perfect mix of that, because the concept of this album that I kind of interpreted is it's about the nightclub scene in Sheffield and just the overall party scene in the UK. So a lot of these songs are dealing with, going out in the nightclub, meeting girls, getting drunk, all that stuff. But I feel like they expand on that concept throughout this album with songs like Riot Van, where they're dealing with kind of the youth rebellion. So it kind of has this like youth culture concept too that's kind of overarching this album. And it kind of fits that mid-2000s kind of like teenage angst punk movement that was happening. The recklessness, the carefree nature, the resistance to authority, refusing to grow up, and falling in the mainstream. Even the last song, Alex kind of talks about that, where he's kind of reflecting on the album that he's written, where he's kind of judging all these people for, being too much in the mainstream. So I feel like that overall theme that's on this album does a great job of allowing them the creative freedom to tackle different album subjects, not just having to stay with the nightclub theme for every single song, which would have gotten boring and too repetitive. I don't feel this album is as conceptual or cinematic as albums like 2112 by Rush or The Wall by Pink Floyd. These are classic, some of the best concept albums of all time, and they're very cinematic. Like you listen to them, you feel like you're in those spaces. This album has a much more subtle general concept that some listeners may not even know is there. There's probably some listeners who don't even realize that this is a concept album just because of how loose it is at times, but I feel like that allows for the creative freedom, and I feel like a lot of this album is really carried by the excellent songwriting by Alex Turner. And, my last thought is I feel like this is a great introductory album to get, people who aren't into rock music, or, people who are into other, genres inside of rock music into the indie rock scene. This is a great introduction album. This is probably the first indie rock album, or at least the indie rock band that I really got into around 2007, 2008. This was the band that I really got into. I really enjoyed their music a lot, and I feel like this is a great introduction band because they have a lot of songs that have that kind of pop nature to them where they're really fun to listen to, but they also have some more deeper cuts that I think really kind of get you into that scene. So overall I really enjoyed this album. And now I'm going to give my overall rating for this album. I give this album a 4.5 out of 5. I thought this was an excellent album, one of the best indie rock albums from the 2000s, and one of my favorite indie rock albums of all time. It has a little bit of everything that you want out of an indie rock album. Super fun and energetic, catchy instrumentation, great production, good vocal performances. It's well-written lyrics. It just has all those things come together to create a really great album. I feel like if I had to describe this album in one word, I would use the word fun. This is a really fun album that has the same, youth energy to it that a lot of the punk rock from the 70s and 80s had. That type of kind of rebellious energy that you just want out of an indie rock band that's just cool, So this is a really just fun, cool album, and it's a very listenable album. My only complaint is I didn't like the song, perhaps Vampires is a bit strong, but I just felt like that song did not work on this album, and it's definitely a skippable track for me. But overall, I still think this was a really great album and one I really enjoyed listening to. Now I'm going to talk about who I would recommend this album for. This is where I list some artists that I feel like if you're fans of these artists or artists similar to these artists, you probably will get some enjoyment out of this album. So first, I would recommend this album to people who are fans of more classic artists from around the time period that this album came out, like the White Stripes, the Strokes, Queens of the Stone Age, Franz Ferdinand, the Fratellis, and Interpol. These are a couple of artists that I feel like if you're fans of these artists and these bands, I think you would enjoy this album and the type of music that Arctic Monkeys put out during this time period. I do feel like their sound has changed a little bit, but I feel like if you're fans of these bands or similar bands to these bands, then you probably would enjoy this album. I would also recommend this album to people who are fans of more modern artists like Cage the Elephant, Two Door Cinema Club, Vampire Weekend, The Vaccines, The Raytons, and The Sherlocks. These are more modern indie rock bands that I feel like if you're a fan of these bands or music similar to the music that these bands make, you probably will enjoy this album. I feel like a lot of these bands were influenced by this album and by the Arctic Monkeys in general. So I feel like fans of these bands will get some enjoyment out of this album. And that does it for this album review. For the album Whatever People Say I Am, That's What I'm Not by the band Arctic Monkeys. I want to thank everyone for watching. Hope you all have a great day, and peace out.
In nature, sounds exist in space.